Hello, I'm Nee West, and welcome back again to European Goals, the podcast following my stories of my trips to Europe to watch top-level football and become a more cultured individual. A new year, and it was April 2015. The Easter Bunny had dropped off their eggs, and our next European ground hop would take us to the French capital and mainland, to Paris Saint Germain. Back in those rose-tinted pre-Brexit days, our flight was back with British European, Flybe, whom at the time had regular flights from Exeter to Charles de Gaulle Airport, the second busiest airport in Europe in terms of football. It was built in 1974 and seen as a major hub in terms of connecting flights. This time we would traverse Ile-de-France and head into the inner city from the airport by train. Being only fools, the plan would be to focus on the main tourist sites and put our euros towards them, rather than the finest food and drink or accommodation. From the first day we would learn there would be no mange tout or creme de menthe for this pair of plunkers. More croissants, Evian and croque-monsieur. We headed out, ready to say bonjour. Leaving our small but adequate Bert and Ernie style twin room, the highlights being a large sun-facing window and a decent kettle with a sound selection of teas. We're British. What more do you need than a good brew? That leads us nicely into this episode's city summary. Berets, bicycles, baguettes, scarves, striped sweaters, garlic, onions, frog's legs. Ho-he-ho! Just kidding. That would be being stereotypical. Well, apart from the baguettes. Roads, rivers, romance. Triumphant tourism and tradition. Feeling strong, where else to start than with the Eiffel Tower? Passing en route past Les Invalides, the Invalids, an expanse of buildings in the Baroque style containing museums, monuments, and the Dôme des Invalides, and the Royal Chapel, the tallest church building in Paris at 107 metres, now a shrine to Napoleon. The complex was built to be home to the aged and disabled veteran military soldiers. The complex was fully completed in 1706. The esplanade in front of the historic hospital was used as a venue for multiple sports at the Paris Summer Olympics just last year. Including archery and the marathon, the athletes must certainly have needed their Snickers.
Have you got the Snickers? No, just the world.
We would need our nuts, as now for the tower. Built of course by the man Gustave in 1889 to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the French Revolution, its current height stands at 1,083 feet, and it weighs over 10,000 tons. It is the most visited monument in the world, welcoming a near or monumental 300 million visitors since its opening. There would be many signs warning of pickpockets, as lifts would take you to the second floor and on to the top. But the way you were crammed in so tightly like sardines, it was understandable, and you hoped no one had been eating them. Costing $15.50, you could well have some spare change. At the top there is a reconstruction of Gustave's office with a waxwork of him with his inventor friend, Thomas Edison. What a pair of bright sparks they were. There is also a champagne bar, for those brave enough to have reached the top and brave enough to pop the question. For those that said we, there was a consummate place to kiss. To be fair, the champers was of the top-notch variety, with the choices being long-standing company Duval Leroy and bottles made for 21 Michelin-star chef Alain Ducasse. A taste would set you back up to €25, so I guess depending on the ring you bought, you could settle for a €3 bottle of water and a broken engagement 3 days later. As you can imagine, the views were sublime, and with Donny bringing his quality camera along this time, much scenic snapping was done. All the main sights could be seen, including the boats and bridges across the famous Seine River, the Arc de Triomphe, which had a band playing at the daily ceremony, rekindling the eternal flame at the tomb of the unknown soldier. Also in view were gardens, an aquarium, and a local sports and athletic arena, Stade Émile Antoine, along with copious amounts of coaches waiting for the tourists to come back down. In the distance was Montmartre Hill and the religious landmark Sacré-Cœur Basilica. The district is home to vineyards and the famous Moulin Rouge. Voulez-vous coucher avec moi? C'est ça? Not fancying too many squash sojourns in the lifts, we opted to walk down the 674 steps from the second floor back to base and take our tired legs and firm glutes into the Jardins de Trocadero. These English-style gardens claiming to have the best view of the tower and featuring a fair amount of groups of teenagers and bums sharing boxes of beer. Again, this is not confirming nor conforming to a stereotype, just a sign of what was to come in the evening. The price of food and drink in a restaurant, even during happy hours, was Les Miserables, and only affording a pizza and Heineken just seemed wrong. What we had seen in those gardens made total sense, when a can of super strength lager and a baguette cost around €1 in the supermarket, so our room often became the restaurant on this trip, tipsy with no tips. The following day we had a hunch that the Notre Dame Cathedral would be the best thing to visit. This iconic place of worship's foundations began in 1163, with Pope Alexander III laying its first stone, built on the ruins of 2 earlier churches. Its twin Gothic towers taking its completed height to 223 feet. Inside we found majestic stained glass windows, including its 3 striking rose windows with their original 13th century glass, along with a mini model of the cathedral itself. The cathedral has suffered damage throughout its life, and after the French Revolution, Napoleon himself rescued it. The Didi dictator crowned himself French Emperor inside it in 1804. More recently was the fire of April 2019, which destroyed the cathedral spire and most of the roof. The cathedral reopened just last December, the rebuilding project said to have cost over €700 million. Situated around the front of the cathedral is the statue Charlemagne et ses Ludes, Charlemagne and his gods. The Emperor and King of the Franks is sat atop of a horse, led by his guard Oliver. This statue has courted controversy due to Charlemagne's Germanic links, and was in fact left untouched by German forces during World War II. The band Blossoms released a song in 2016 named Charlemagne inspired by vocalist Tom Ogden's brother's knowledge of history, using the song as a metaphor to describe worshipping someone like a king. For us explorers, the day was also actually match day, so we stopped off for a light lunch and a sit down in Jardin des Grands Explorateurs, the garden of the observatory or garden of the great explorers, named after 13th century Marco Polo and French 17th century explorer Cavelier de la Salle. Its highlight and focal point being the ornate bronze fountain at its tip, the fountain of the four parts of the world. Having had our Marks and Spencer snacks in District Saint-Michel, yes, it's true, it wouldn't just be any match. Now it was time to discover the Parc des Princes and Paris Saint Germain versus Lille.
That's wonderful, Tango.
Hopping off after a 30-minute metro journey, we arrived with plenty going on, and first making sure we headed towards the correct stadium, as just across the street is neighbouring Stade Jean-Bouin, home to rugby team Stade Français, and just this season now home to Paris FC, newly promoted to Ligue 1 after interestingly originally being part of Paris Saint Germain, merged together with Stade Saint Germain in 1970, only to split just 2 years later. After a brief browse in the pricey club shop, we headed back onto the concourse to wave down and pester one of the many beer servers, who were adorned with nondescript beer backpack sprayers as if they were fumigating the fans. After a couple of pints of pesticide, it was time to head inside for some park life. It turns out that since 1991 there has been Evans Law, which largely bans alcohol advertising and is named after the former health minister that introduced it. There is also a ban on alcoholic drinks in French stadia without having a meal with it. The Parc des Princes, a former velodrome in the 19th century, was adapted over the years and became home to PSG in 1974. Holding over 47,000, it was home to the national football and rugby teams before the Stade de France opened in 1998 for the World Cup, the French going on to win the final, beating Brazil. As we took our places, we noticed the messages at the top of the stands. Fiers de nos couleurs and Rêvons plus grand. Proud of our colours and let's dream bigger. And there was a sense of local as well as national pride amongst the crowd in attendance of 45,001. Smells Like Teen Spirit by Nirvana was playing. To me, it smells like time for team spirit, so let me enlighten you. Lille's manager, hello, was René Girard. A former national manager of the younger age groups, he would leave Lille in 2015 and go on to manage new neighbours Paris FC in the 20-21 season. PSG's manager was Laurent Blanc, the decorated former French international, a World Cup winner, and holding the honour of scoring the tournament's first ever golden goal. Think of it as the school playground game Wembley for the international stage. Score and you're through, simple as. Laurent will be no stranger to Manchester United fans, playing for the club between 2001 and 2003, before retiring as a player, and at one point being blamed for an awful run of losses that spelt his surname: Bolton, Liverpool, Arsenal, Newcastle and Chelsea. Maybe he just became sick of kissing goalkeeper Fabien Barthez's head for luck. who had performed this ritual before France matches and even did so in full kit in the World Cup final, which he was suspended for. Right now he is managing Al Ittihad in Saudi. A player we were excited to see play and didn't due to suspension was the Swedish legend that is Zlatan Ibrahimovic. He had received a 4-match ban for a referee rant where he also proclaimed France to be a shit country. Merde. Then he moved to England and Manchester in 2016. The PSG team did however contain more sprinkles of stardust. Centre-back David Luiz, who went on to play for Chelsea and Arsenal between the years of 2016 and 2021. Full-back Serge Aurier, who left for Tottenham in 2017 and also had a 2-year spell with Nottingham Forest between 2022 and 2024. In the same ilk as Zlatan was Uruguayan Edison Cavani. After a goal-laden 7-year spell, he joined Manchester United in 2020. On the bench sat the two Lucases, former Lille fullback Lucas Digne, playing for Everton between 2018 and 2022, presently with Aston Villa, and Lucas Moura, who joined Tottenham again in 2018. Midfield maestro Yohan Cabaye, another former Lille player, would make up the contingent, joining PSG from Newcastle in 2014 and returning to England after just one full season to join Crystal Palace. The Lille team contained Djibril Sidibe, who had a loan spell at Everton in the 2019 to 2020 season. Idrissa Gueye, who left Lille to join Aston Villa, then on to Everton between 2015 to 2019, leaving England for PSG before returning to Merseyside. Sofiane Boufal, who joined Southampton for a 4-year spell in 2016, and Adama Traore, not the oiled up one, but the one that played for Hull between 2022 to 2024. On Lille's bench, David Rosenhal, who had played for Newcastle in the 2007 to 2008 season, and Divock Origi, who left Lille to join Liverpool, the Belgians' most famous goal being the winning goal in the incredible Champions League comeback in 2019, beating Barcelona in the semi-final 4-3 on aggregate, after being 3-0 down from the first leg. He also scored the clinching second goal in the all-English 2-0 win in the final over Tottenham. My obscure FIFA finds here would be starter and loanee Ronnie Lopez, the Portuguese Manchester City youngster at the time. He became the youngest ever scorer in January 2013, scoring the third goal in a 3-0 FA Cup third round tie against Watford at a mere 17 years and 9 days old. An unused sub was Ryan Mendes, having a loan spell at Nottingham Forest in the following season. The match itself would catch fire straight away, and any hopes Lille may have had were extinguished early. If you happen to have the notoriously risky pre-match piss and be late in putting that seat down, you would have missed the action as the PSG thoroughbreds came running out of the traps. In just minute 1, Aurier broke down the right to put in a low cross, missed by Cavani, but falling to Maxwell, who hit a rather scuffed left-footed shot that bounced over Lille keeper Victor Wanyama's arm. Then in the fourth, Pastore found the right pass to break Lille's poor offside trap, Cavani clear and performing a luscious lob over Wanyama from the edge of the D. A skill familiar with Manchester United fans who may remember a 40-yard lob he scored against Fulham in the 20-21 season. Still before the half hour, in the 28th minute, the yawning gaps in Lille's defence seemingly getting bigger, Thiago Motta's splitting pass sending Cavani clear, who squared to Ezequiel Lavezzi to fire into the roof of the net. Just before half-time, in the 43rd, it was full. A fine passing move sent Blaise Matuidi down the left, holding off his man, pulling the ball back for Lavezzi to caress into the bottom right of the goal. 4-0 at half-time. The first time Lille had conceded 4 goals in the first half since 1993. A slow start to the second would bring a consolation for Lille in the 59th. A powerful header from a corner into the top left by centre-back Marco Bassa, heading in a deep corner from Sofiane Boufal. The glimmer of hope dimmed when once more the offside trap failed. The 73rd minute, Sebastian Corchia hauling down a clean through Lavezzi, and as last man, receiving a straight red card and leaving an even bigger hole in their defence. To compound the misery, the foul was in the penalty area, Cavani coolly stepping up to blast the ball right-footed past Anyema's left hand. PSG's goal music was taken from Public Enemy's Harder Than You Think, also used as the theme to the Last Leg topical comedy show from Channel 4. It would not be this game's last leg. PSG would make it a Super 6 in the 77th and a hat-trick for Argentine Lavezzi, controlling the ball well at the D, holding off his man, driving into the box, and firing right-footed across Anyema into the bottom left corner. A patchy season for lamentable Lille, who had finished a reasonable 8th considering their involvement in European competition, which had started in the Champions League third qualifying round in July 2014. PSG, however, would win all their remaining games and complete a domestic treble, having already won the French League Cup, beating Bastia 4-0 and completing the 3-trophy haul, beating Auxerre 1-0 in the final of the French Cup at the end of May. For us, our journey was not yet fully complete. We had some more proud colours to see and some big dreams to ride out. The following day was time to complete the tourist traps, starting with the remarkable roundabout that hosts the Arc de Triomphe and ends the Tour de France. This amazing and well-known arch stands in the centre of Place Charles de Gaulle. Off of it 12 avenues which form a star, so the arch is also named Arch of Triumph of the Star. Construction began in 1806 on Napoleon's birthday, August the 15th. It wasn't completed until 1836, 30 years later, covering 3 kings' reigns, Louis XVIII, Ferdinand VII, and Louis Philippe, who opened the thing. Sculptures celebrating military victories adorn the facades of the 4 pedestals. The most famous, La Marseillaise by François Rude. It is also covered with the names of many decorated generals and battles. Under the arch is the tomb of the unknown soldier, where a flame has been lit every evening since 1923. Annually a celebration takes place on the armistice day that World War I ended. It is also where the Bastille Day parade begins. For a mere €950, we climbed the 284 steps to the top, an observation deck. Just below it, a small museum of exhibits. From this viewpoint, we would see the 3.5-kilometre walk ahead of us, along the Champs-Élysées and down to the Louvre Museum. Sweet treats of croissants, ice creams and full-fat Coke were all had to keep us going and guard us against the now drizzly and damp conditions. There was plenty of high-end shops en route to shelter in when required, to look out of place in. As the sun was now trying to break through, we stopped just before the museum to take a look at the gleaming Luxor obelisks. Egyptian obelisks said to be built in the 13th century BC, near 75 feet tall and weighing over 200 tons. This magnificent monument and world's biggest sundial was gifted to Paris in 1830 by Sultan and Viceroy of Egypt Mehmet Ali. This was a thank you for the deciphering of some of those hard hieroglyphics. It stands alongside two fountains, Fontaine de Mers of the seas and Fontaine de Fleuves of the rivers, a terrific reliever to the terrible traffic and tour buses that have to be negotiated. It also gave us a view of the Palais Bourbon, the meeting place of the National Assembly. We had no time for whiskey or biscuit though, and headed to our assembly point and queue for entry to the Louvre. Following the Egyptian theme, the entrance being a 20-metre high glass pyramid. If Egyptians did greenhouses. Now let's be clear, it would take days to explore this massive museum and its area of 73,000 square metres. The majority of punters, including us, had come here to see just one lady, which we could achieve for €12. Now I ain't calling her cheap and make her more miserable than she already is. Yes, it's the Mona Lisa. Painted in the early 16th century and famous for Lisa's rather serious smile, with also a slight case of side-eye going on. Perhaps this is where the Mona part comes in. Many have tried to crack Da Vinci's code, and I certainly wouldn't diss legendary Leonardo. I loved him nearly as much as all the other Ninja Turtles. Held in a large room, cased in bulletproof glass, and distant in front of a crowd of many snapping phone cameras, we left the room with the same exposure of expression. It had been stolen in 1911, and many people went to stare at the blank space where it was hung. They even pointed the finger at Picasso. Poor Pablo. Moving swiftly on with our escape, we took more joy from the 17th century pistols and swords. What a pair of weapons. Feeling peckish, we headed back via Le Pont des Arts, one of the Seine's many bridges, and grabbed a crepe. Me savoury, Donny sweet, me of course being sweet enough already. The bridge is one of many infamous for its love locks that couples attach to symbolise their carnal connection. Whilst permitted at the time, this became a bridge too far, just months later, when 45 tons of padlocks were removed that were weighing it down due to the fear of collapse. Heartbreak. We had one magical day left in the city, so where else to fulfill the dreams than Disneyland? Having its own dedicated train station, it was just a 40-minute journey to this new world. Forking out a then pretty expensive €74. This would give us access to both parks, Disneyland Paris and neighbouring Walt Disney Studios. Were they taking the mickey? Entering Disneyland Paris, open since 1992, first you are of course met with a view of the castle and Fantasyland, this one unique in style and themed to Sleeping Beauty. Adventureland would see us meet Indiana Jones and his Temple of Peril, presumably before he was doomed. After this mad minecart coaster, we set sail for a more subtle splash with the Pirates of the Caribbean. Next would be Frontierland, searching for gold aboard the runaway mine train of Big Thunder Mountain, then negotiating the spooky spirits of Phantom Manor to engage with the bride of the haunted mansion. Discoveryland would take us to infinity and beyond.
3, 2, 1, 0.
Starting with another mountain, this time in space. Space Mountain Mission 2, the sequel to the original Crazy Coaster in the US and launching us to the edge of the universe. Continuing the theme, we would then X-wing our way to Star Tours and a meeting with R2-D2 and C-3PO as we travelled into the Star Wars galaxy. Ready for battle, we joined Toy Story's Buzz Lightyear in a laser blast. Needing to be brought back down to earth, well nearly, we entered the fantastic world of film and Walt Disney Studios, added 10 years later in 2002. Being met with another tall, imposing tower, but this time of terror, journeying through the Twilight Zone, and it becoming clear our feet wouldn't touch the ground, as we'd go from terror to Armageddon, and we didn't want to miss a thing. The Armadillo asteroid drilling vehicle from the movie sat outside a special effects show. As if by magic, we survived the end of the world. Rock and roll! As we moved on to Aerosmith's Rock and Roller Coaster, which would be my favourite ride. Aerosmith taking you through all their loops and major hits, I left with a Mona Lisa smile, as had Dude Looks Like a Lady running through my mind. My thoughts relating to the rumour Devious Da Vinci could have disguised the painting as a sneaky self-portrait, due to similarities in the facial features and identity never having been proven. We had a desire to see how this kind of magic is created, with the studio tram tour. Then from studio to stunts, as we took our seats for Motia's Action, a stunt spectacular themed by the Disney cartoon film series Cars. So now, having experienced both thunder and lightning, we were hungry for Ratatouille, the newest ride in the park, hence the longest queue and our feet firmly back on the ground. Based on the animated film with the same name about a rat called Remy with the ability of a top-level chef, we climb into a ratmobile and run and race with Remy through both kitchen and restaurant. Loving the movie, I love this too, and would take a souvenir Rubber Remy home with me. Not as dodgy as it sounds. It was time to get packing, and we had packed a lot into our Paris trip. Yes, it's a tourist trap, but rightfully so. The landmark's iconic, and like the movies, need to be seen. And it has a great football team. It holds a romance about it, and what's not to love? The great Ronan said, "Life is a roller coaster." I hope I've put a smile on your face. And you don't think I say it best when I say nothing at all? Many thanks, mes amis, for completing episode 3. And join me for number 4. Get those castanets out once more. Like a kick in the clackers, we return to Spain. And it could get messy. Sante!